Reincarnated back to the day of the earthquake, I was no longer the same as in my previous life. Recklessly crawling into the rubble to dig up Chi Yu's body, I could only watch helplessly as that body was crushed by rubble until it was no longer recognizable. In the previous life, a great earthquake occurred in Yuncheng, and Chi Yu's twin brother was buried under the ruins. Chi Yu and his mother-in-law plotted to fake their own death, impersonating his brother just because they couldn't bear to let his weak wife endure the fate of remaining faithful. At that time, I was so heartbroken that I couldn't tell that the body was not my husband. I didn't care about the dangerous aftershocks, determined to risk my life to bring my husband's remains out. In the end, my leg was crushed by rubble, and I got an infection that couldn't be cured. I passed away in a state of indignation. My daughter was not even 4 years old at that time, but just because she wanted to follow me to find her father, she fell into the earthquake crack and she was never seen again. My husband, Ma Chi Yu, he witnessed it all with his own eyes. On the outside, he pretended to be my brother, but calmly inherited everything. My property all offered to his sister-in-law's weak hands. In this life, God has mercy on me and let me return to the day of the earthquake. Wei quickly ran away. The aftershock was coming. The neighbor next door grabbed my hand, intending to run away together. In the blink of an eye, my mother-in-law, her hair disheveled, her face covered in dust, stepped forward to block my path. She slapped me hard in the face, her eyes red as a comet. My son is still inside. Why did you run out alone? He is your husband. He rushed in because of you. Whether he lives or dies, you must drag his body out here. In my previous life, because of that one sentence, I did not care about life or death and rushed into the rubble. But the person buried inside was Chi Yu's twin brother. Chi Jiao rushed in just to save his wife Xianan, but Xianan was already secretly taken out by Chi Yu. I raised my head to look at the tall building that was tilting and about to collapse. Just 10 more minutes and it would collapse completely. But mother-in-law and Chi Yu just wanted me to die in this earthquake. Because of the earthquake, everyone's faces were covered in dust, unable to distinguish between real and fake. Chi Yu helped Xianan walk over from afar, pretending to be injured, and standing in front of his mother, his voice choked up like a devoted lover. "Mum, I'm afraid that my younger brother has also met with something bad. It's so dangerous in there, yet he loves his sister-in-law so much, to the point of willing to die for her. He certainly doesn't want his sister-in-law to risk her life like that." In my previous life, I didn't even have time to hear Chi Yu say anything when I heard my mother-in-law scream. I frantically rushed into the rubble, now seeing me standing there frozen, not moving at all. Chi Yu couldn't help but step out to shield me, finishing the act. The survivors beside him also nodded in agreement. "That's right, an earthquake is so dangerous. Wei is just a little girl going in. Won't help if something happens. It won't be too late in time. Well, it's better to wait for the rescue team to arrive." The neighbor quickly grabbed my hand worriedly, advising me, "Even if you don't think about yourself, you should think about your daughter. Her father is gone. You can't let her lose her mother too." Tridu's face stiffened. His eyes flashed with disappointment and annoyance. He originally intended to use the words of my mother and the people around me to stir up guilt in my heart, making me, like in my previous life, blindly rush into the rubble. The me of my previous life madly rushed into the collapsing building. Even the kind neighbors who tried their best to hold me back couldn't stop me. Then my daughter, who was not even 4 years old, also secretly followed her mother into the dangerous area. I was crushed by a large rock and broke both my legs, and saw with my own eyes my little daughter fall into a deep crevice with no way to save her. Thinking of this, my heart was filled with hatred. The daughter who could have lived peacefully was my mother-in-law. She deliberately let her daughter go and let her run to me. It was only because she hated my daughter as a hindrance. It was only because she wanted to openly rob me of the property my parents left me. I was lucky enough not to die in the earthquake and was later rescued, but my legs were crushed by rocks and had to be amputated. While I was recuperating, my mother-in-law repeated the words like pouring poison into my ears that my husband and children all died because of me. I gradually became ill and depressed and didn't even know that the medicine was switched by someone else. The wound became infected, and my life was like a candle in the wind. It wasn't until the very last moment that I accidentally heard the cold-blooded conversation between my mother-in-law and Tridu. Adu, you must take good care of the baby in Hanam's belly. That bastard is dead, and this little girl is about to die. All the assets of the Shu family will be ours in the future. Don't worry, Mum, I've liked Xianan since I was little. If it weren't for the huge assets of the Shu family, why would I agree to marry Shu Shu Wei? The child in Nan Nan's belly is my brother's, but my brother and I are blood relatives. I will definitely treat him as my own son and raise him. It turns out that the husband I once loved dearly married me only for money. He doesn't love me, he loves his own sister-in-law. In order to swallow the inheritance in a fair and square way, they didn't hesitate to let their own son and nephew die. If that's the case in this life, I will definitely make them pay blood debt, with blood pay life debt, with life. No, my son is still in there without a body, he can't be reincarnated. Bagi, dai tie. The heart-wrenching scream of my mother-in-law rang out again, but the me of this life only calmly looked at her as if watching a roll end without any emotion left. My mother-in-law suddenly sat down on the ground, slapping her thighs and crying loudly, the sound resounding as if it wanted to shake the heavens and earth. But in that sad cry, she still did not forget to glance at my face. As for the other sister-in-law, Hanam, her eyes suddenly flashed with a fake red and sobbing look. She immediately hugged Tridu tightly, her voice sobbing as if she had lost her courage. Sister-in-law Tudu is your husband. If the person buried in there is my husband, then even if I have to die with you, I am willing. As soon as the words fell, Tridu was moved, tightly grasped Hanam's hand, her eyes deep as if she was infatuated and unable to let go. I coldly watched the drama before my eyes. In the previous life, it was Hanam who incited my mother-in-law to let my daughter run to her death to find her mother. This time, she would not even think of escaping her crime. I softly exhaling, she reached out to hold her daughter's small hand, her tender hand still trembling slightly. "Husband, don't leave me alone." A heart-wrenching cry rang out. I turned around as if I couldn't live anymore, pulling my daughter's hand and running towards the ruins. My mother-in-law and Tridu's eyes immediately lit up, filled with hope. But just a blink of an eye later, both of their faces simultaneously sank. I collapsed on the spot, my body trembling, and then I passed out. Everyone around saw this and all showed sympathy. So pitiful at such a young age, and already having to become a widow. Right at that moment, the rescue team had just rushed to the scene. A kind neighbour immediately ran over to call them. "She's fine. Quickly put her on a stretcher." I was gently placed on the stretcher. At that moment, a loud bang shook the heavens and earth. The building in front finally couldn't hold on completely, collapsing, turning into a pile of rubble dust. The ground flew up in a cloud of dust. In the chaos, I seemed to still hear the trembling sighs of relief around me. It was the lucky sound of those who had just escaped the scythe of death. Luckily, they hadn't gotten in yet, otherwise their lives would have been buried under the rubble. I couldn't understand what that mother-in-law was thinking. Her son was no longer there, so she forced her daughter-in-law to die with him. Is there any morality in this world? Was it intentional? Wanting to seize the property of the in-laws, I heard that the Shu family left her quite a fortune. Every word, every sentence was like a sharp knife cutting straight into the dark hearts of Tridu and his mother. The two of them's faces turned red and pale, extremely embarrassed, unable to speak. After the building collapsed, no matter how they explained, it would all become meaningless. On the contrary, it would be even more painful to hear. When we reached the safe area, I tightly hugged my daughter in my arms, holding her tight as if afraid that if I let go, she would be lost forever. Happiness being found from the hands of death made my heart tremble as if I had just stepped out of a dream. My daughter was still young, but she also understood that her home was no longer there. I gently patted her back quietly, explaining clearly, but she sobbed and asked a question that made my heart ache. "Mum, why won't Dad let me call you Dad?" The child's words were immature, but contained a pain that was hard to put into words. After hearing it, my heart turned cold. Tridu's acting was so clumsy that even a child could easily see through it. I wiped away my tears, lowered my head to look at my son, and solemnly instructed, "My dear, your father is gone forever. The house where the Chai family lives is my property. From the bricks to the curtains, everything was left to me by my parents before they died. This earthquake took away so many lives, so when Chi-yu, his mother, and Xia-nan came to me, I was not surprised at all. After all, I had a fortune, while they had nothing left but empty hands. I just didn't expect that before I could even step out of the rescue area, they would follow me all the way. My eyes were red, my body was exhausted, and in a short period of time I had gone through so many events, pain and luck, intertwined, making me feel like I was about to collapse. On the outside, I looked like a young widow struggling with the pain of losing her husband. At that moment, Chi-yu led his mother to me. "Xiaowei, it's not easy for you to raise a child alone now. Later, mother will live with him, consider it as having a place to rely on." Mother-in-law snorted, coldly sneering at me disdainfully. "My son's money, I must take it all back. You woman pretending to be a woman, and even bringing along your illegitimate child, don't even dream of touching a single penny." I took a deep breath, laughing coldly in my heart. Chi-du's money. When I married into the Chi family, my father-in-law had just lost the last house in gambling. The whole family almost had to sleep on the streets. It was me, you, who found a place to live, took care of their shelter. During the years we lived together, Chi-du brought all the money he earned home, never left a penny. On the contrary. He often asked me for money. What assets did he have? Not even a penny. Chi-du saw my ugly expression. His eyes flashed with a hint of embarrassment, but he still stubbornly said nothing. "Xiaowei, after all, you and Chi-du have lived together for so many years. Don't worry, my family is not the kind of unreasonable people. The house in Jianhua Road, you can keep it, we will take the rest. Ziyu died for you after dividing the assets, don't see him again. If Mum sees you, she will be even more heartbroken." After saying that, he pretended to turn away as if he was in so much pain that he couldn't bear to look. I clenched the hem of my shirt in my hand, looking at that shameless face. I only felt nauseous. The house in Jianhua Road was just an old apartment of less than 60 square meters. It had long since deteriorated. He really knew how to calculate. With just one sentence, he wanted to take away all the assets I brought with me before the wedding, which was my dowry. Thinking of this, I gritted my teeth until they bled, my fingernails dug into my palms until they hurt. It was over, everything was gone. He had sold all my houses. Don't think I don't know Ziyu has been secretly sending you guys money. The houses were my dowry. He also sold them all just to support your family. There is not a penny left in the house, Xiaotran, and I don't even know where to go to live. And yet you still come to fight for the last money of my mother and son. Having said this, I sat down on the ground, cried loudly, tears falling down my face like rain. "Husband, you died too soon. As soon as you died, your mother-in-law brought your brother to rob my money, leaving no way for my mother and son to live." I spoke very loudly enough for the entire safe area to hear. Many people turned their heads to look. Most of them were old neighbors who used to live in the same area as us before the earthquake. Tridu didn't expect me to cry loudly in the crowd shouting his name like that. He was the type of person who valued his reputation very much. As soon as he saw everyone looking at him with contemptuous eyes, he immediately lost face to the point of being angry. "What nonsense are you talking about? Our house has both of our names on the apartment and the savings book combined. It must be over 10 billion. I smiled coldly. "You know too well, you know my house, like the palm of your hand." Tridung choked. Even if they were real brothers, no one would reveal all their assets to each other. Moreover, the relationship between Tri-do and Tri-chu was not very close. I looked straight into his eyes. My gaze was cold as ice. You are not Tri-do, you are Tri-chu, yet you know everything as if the account was under your name. As soon as the words were spoken, the atmosphere immediately froze. Tri-do, who was pretending to be Tri-chu, could not answer. He could only grit his teeth and remain silent, as if he had swallowed a thorn. I looked at his hard face and laughed coldly. You are quite good at calculating. It's just a pity that you can't calculate with this nature. Big brother, at first I thought that since we are family, we shouldn't calculate Chi Li, but Tri-do has just passed away, and you want to force my mother and I to die. You are really cruel. If that is the case, then don't blame me for not showing any mercy. Every single coin that Chi-yu gave to your family is the joint property of our marriage. I demand that you return it immediately. As for the jewelry that Ma Chi-yu secretly gave to my sister-in-law, it is all the dowry that my parents left behind. It has nothing to do with you. The neighbors all know about Chi-yu giving money to his biological mother, and they have always praised him for being filial. But now that he secretly took his wife's jewelry to give to his sister-in-law, everyone who heard it would find it unacceptable. As soon as the jewelry was mentioned, Ha-nam, who was standing in the corner, could no longer hold back. She hugged her barely visible pregnant belly, walked straight to me, and raised her chin provocatively. Are you crazy because you are poor? Those things were all voluntarily given to us by Chi-yu. What right do you have to ask for them back if you are good? Go to your grave and ask for your husband. Other women like you who have lost their husbands, what use is there to live and take up space? Xianan stood in front of Zhe, releasing a torrent of insults that the man behind her not only did not stop, but also looked at her with a soft and indulgent gaze. When Jianan had finished cursing Ji-yu, patted her back to comfort her, and turned to me, pretending to be patient. My sister-in-law is pregnant and has an erratic temperament. You should be a little more generous. After all, we are family. I curled my lips and smiled coldly, my voice full of sarcasm. The people in your family only have each other, while I am just a widow who lost her husband and was pushed out to be an outsider. As soon as I finished speaking, Zhi-yu clearly paused her eyes, avoiding and not daring to look directly at me. The mother-in-law could not bear it anymore, seeing that neither Xianan nor Ji-yu could do anything to me. She was so angry that she rushed forward and pushed me hard. I'm telling you, don't use those tricks. All the property and money in this family must be left to me. You are just a woman who has a bastard child. What else do you want money for, Nam? Nam is carrying my eldest grandson. Do you know? I was pushed unsteadily, hitting the metal lunchbox next to the folding bed. My sleeping daughter was immediately awakened. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw a group of people aggressively surrounding her mother, sobbing in fear. I quickly hugged her tightly, comforting her with heartache. A security guard on patrol saw the scene and immediately frowned. On the other side, the fat mother-in-law Tri-do was tall, making the image of my mother and I huddled in the corner look even more skinny, weak, and pitiful. Seeing someone coming, the surrounding neighbors also gathered. Seeing me hugging my child and huddled in a corner, everyone showed sympathy. Some even whispered how pitiful she and her child probably have no place to go. When I saw enough people gathered, I immediately burst into tears, telling them all the years of grievances. I told him that Chi-yu sold all her dowry to support her husband's family. I told him how my mother-in-law, who favored sons over daughters, treated my daughter cruelly. The more I told him, the uglier the faces of the Chi family became, and the more contemptuous the neighbors looked. Of course, I added salt and pepper, but the main thing was that most of it was true. And more importantly, that person named Chi-yu was really dead. In this world, there was no one who could deny what I said. So what I wanted to say was exactly that. Compared to those people who were aggressive and loud, I, a weak woman, holding a small child, was clearly more trustworthy. In everyone's eyes, the name Chi-yu had gone from a good husband to a heartless, selfish person who depended on his wife's family. Chi Yu no, now he should be called Chi Jiao. He was so angry that his face turned red, but he could only watch helplessly as I used today's incident to completely cut off relations with the Chai family. That same day, I immediately went to the company bringing the emergency death certificate. As the official wife, I sold all the shares to Chi Yu's opponent. The initial capital to build that company was my dowry, but unfortunately I was not good at management, and the internal staff was all Chi Yu's people. I was afraid that if I left it for too long, it would cause trouble, so selling it to get the money was the easiest. The money was in hand. It was as easy as turning my hand. The opponent was afraid that I would change my mind, so he quickly signed the contract and transferred the money directly to my account. I carried my daughter back to the villa in the inner city, the only house under Tridu's name after marriage. It's just a pity that it's mine now. As soon as I reached the gate, I saw my mother-in-law and Hanam sitting in the yard sunbathing, looking exactly like the owner of this place. As soon as she saw me, my mother-in-law curled her lips in disdain. "Listen carefully. This is my son's house. You immediately get out of here. You are not welcome here." Saying that, she glared at my daughter, her eyes filled with hatred. "It's because you gave birth to a bastard who killed my son. Now you and your daughter should follow him to the grave." The little girl was scared and ran behind me, her face pale as paper. I've long known that my mother-in-law prefers boys over girls, so I've never let my daughter near her. But now she's grown up enough to understand who loves her and who is cruel. I don't dare imagine what kind of wound those cruel words over the years have left in her heart. The anger in me flared up. I looked straight at her, my face cold as frost. "Your biological son is dead. Don't you feel heartbroken?" Hearing me say that my mother-in-law was so angry that her eyes were red, she rushed forward to hit me. "You bitch, today I have to tear your vicious mouth out." Nam held her stomach standing by watching the fun as if she was watching a show, her mouth slightly curved into a smile. But right at that moment, the villa security guard arrived. I took out the bright red book from my pocket. I had already guessed that my mother-in-law would not easily accept her fate. Of course, I would not be foolish enough to put myself in danger because of a few people like this. Before coming here, I had informed the management of the building in advance. They only recognized people whose names were on the red book, not blindly accepting anyone. Moreover, the high management fee made them work extremely professionally. In less than 10 minutes, Hanam and Trichu's mother-in-law's belongings were cleaned up and thrown straight out the gate. "Oh, what are you guys doing?" Xianan screamed loudly, her voice filled with shock and anger. Normally, when my mother-in-law and I argued, she wouldn't care, but now that her things were thrown out on the street, she couldn't stand it. She gritted her teeth, her eyes full of hatred pointing straight at me. "Do you know that I'm pregnant? If you dare to do that to me, my husband will not forgive you." My mother-in-law's face was also as dark as a pothole. I curled my lips slightly, smiling faintly. "Don't be in a hurry, he's almost back." I looked towards the end of the road where Chi Jiao was rushing back, his face disheveled, his clothes dirty and full of impatience. "I'm really looking forward to it. The moment he comes to the company and discovers that I have sold the company to his sworn enemy, how will his face change?" When he just got home and saw his mother and lover being kicked out of the villa, Chi Jiao's expression was almost distorted. His eyes were filled with resentment, gritting his teeth as he looked at me. "Shu Wei, are you crazy?" Xianan threw herself into his arms, sobbing. "Brother, that bitch kicked me and Mum out." Zijiao hugged her tightly, feeling extremely heartbroken. I slowly pulled out the red book, showing it to him. My name was clearly on the cover. Zijiao's eyes immediately darkened, as if he suddenly remembered something. His face paled, swallowing his saliva with difficulty. Not only did she transfer the house's name, but she also sold the company. This villa and that company were Jiyu's life's work. Now they were all in my hands. I was Jiyu's official wife. What's wrong with me inheriting my husband's house and company? I raised my eyebrows, my voice indifferent. I don't know how to run a company. What's wrong with selling it for money? Hearing that Xianan's eyes immediately flashed with jealousy, her face pale with anger. Your husband hasn't even turned cold yet, and you dare to do that. Aren't you afraid that he will come looking for you at night? I chuckled, my eyes sweeping over all three of them, cold and full of hidden meaning. If he were to look, he wouldn't be looking for me. If Qijiao really knew that after he died his younger brother would wear his body to take over his property, steal his wife and children, he would definitely be so angry that he would turn over in his grave. What do you mean? Qijiao's face turned pale, and a look of panic suddenly appeared in his eyes. I curled my lips, glanced at him indifferently, and thought to myself, how long does he think he can hide it? How can I believe such a clumsy act? I looked at the text messages on my phone and chuckled. I don't know if my husband is looking for me, but your brother's creditors are coming soon. Maybe the fake Qijiao didn't know yet. In his previous life, in order to indulge Xianan's bottomless desires, the real Qijiao had borrowed a huge amount of debt from outside. In his previous life, he died, and the one who was declared dead was Qijiao, so the debt naturally followed him to the grave. But in this life after the earthquake, I made a big deal out of it, and they couldn't secretly switch, so they had to declare Qi Yu dead. Qi Yu had actually taken Qijiao's identity to live. Legally, Qijiao was still alive and well. I really wanted to see what the fake Qijiao would use to pay off that debt now that he had nothing left. From afar, I saw a group of people in black suits approaching. I picked up my daughter, calmly walked into the villa and said softly, "Good girl, let's go home." Behind me, panicked screams rang out in waves. "Who are you? This is a society ruled by law. You can't do such nonsense." Help! Oh my God, Shushuwei, please open the door for us." I heard the crying getting louder and louder behind me, closing the door step by step. That debt was not borrowed by the fake Qijiao, and it was not mine. Even if the fake Qijiao had money, he would not be foolish enough to pay for the dead. But life is not a dream. The debt collectors do not care who he is. As long as they know his name is Qijiao, he must pay the debt if he is still alive. Yanan was pregnant. She was anxious, forcing the fake Qijiao to settle the matter immediately. Otherwise, she would immediately have an abortion. Hearing that the mother-in-law got a heart attack and was taken straight to the emergency room. The fake Qijiao was kicked out of the villa by me with nothing left in his hands. In the end, he had to sell the only valuable watch on his person and temporarily rented a dilapidated apartment. But has Xianan ever lived a miserable life? As for my mother-in-law, since I became a daughter-in-law, she was used to living in luxury, lacking nothing, now falling into the abyss. How can they bear it? Every day we argued, complained and lamented, as if falling into hell, unwilling to see all the assets fall into my hands. Triqiu immediately sued and dragged me to court. Not stopping there, he also opened a live stream and cried and pretended to be pitiful. The screen showed the three fake Triqiu mother-in-law and Hanam, their clothes torn, sitting huddled in front of the phone lens. The mother-in-law choked up and said, "After my son died in the earthquake, my daughter-in-law kicked our whole family out onto the street. I have a serious heart condition, I don't have long to live, and my eldest daughter-in-law is pregnant. Hua Shuwei is so cruel she stole all the money, leaving us to live or die." Her voice was gentle, no longer sour, hugging Hanam and crying miserably. The recent earthquake had caused many people to lose their loved ones. Thousands of families were broken up. So hearing those words, many netizens felt indignant, flocking to comment and curse me. All my messaging apps had been attacked. Looking at the screen full of malicious curses, I didn't care at all. At that moment, Xianan called through her smug voice, "I can guess how pleased she is to see me being stoned by the whole social network." "Shusha Wei, are you afraid now? If you know how to regret, then transfer the money back to our house right away. Maybe I'll be generous enough to let you and your son stay at home to be my maid and my son." I chuckled, looking at her pregnant belly that wasn't yet visible, feeling ridiculous in my heart. Not forgetting to turn on the recording mode, I coldly replied. Seeing that I had no intention of begging Xianan's voice immediately broke, becoming sharp and sour. Xu Shiwei, you are a widow. What else do you want to do? Are you planning to remarry? Do you still have the face to face the soul of Qi Yu who has died in the netherworld? Is Qi Yu dead? I chuckled, unable to hide the mockery in my eyes. Nan lived in that old rented room, living like hell every day. If she couldn't scare me, she would play the pitiful role. Shi Wei, you are also a mother. You understand being a mother is not easy. When we go to court, Qi Yu's assets will be divided by my mother-in-law. Why don't you transfer some to us first? Just a little is fine. After all, we are still family. Her voice was soft and weak, but looking at the photo she sent in the room, with peeling paint mouldy walls and a bunch of scattered furniture, I didn't need to imagine how desperate she was. Could Xianan endure the suffering? My mother-in-law couldn't even bear it. Before, when I was still in the Qi family, I ate 3 meals a day, living no different from the Queen Mother. Now being pushed into poverty with debts clinging to me and a shabby house, how could they bear it? Waiting for the court case would take at least a few months, and the creditors would come knocking on the door every day, pressuring them every minute and every hour. With a life like this, Hanam would not be able to survive. But I cannot forget my previous life. When my wound was infected, my whole body ached. Hanam was wearing all luxury brands, standing next to me, holding her nose in disgust, urging and pointing. Quickly stop treating her, don't waste any more money. Qi Zhaojia hugged her softly, coaxing. Keep her here so the world can see how good we are. Just treat her like a dying dog, no matter how long Dai lives. Only then did Hanam reluctantly nod before leaving. She kicked my bed frame hard to relieve her anger. The kick made my wound ache as if it was tearing my flesh, but all the physical pain was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. I took a few pictures of the villa and sent them directly to Hanam. Sorry, sister-in-law, I'm out of options. Let's just follow the court's decision. Whatever the court decides, I'll listen. After sending it, I immediately added her to the block list. Sure enough, not long after, Hanam went live online again, crying and complaining about how cruel I was. The netizens' curses increased, but I remained indifferent. I just looked forward to the day of the court hearing even more. The Tri family held live streams every day, crying and selling goods, attracting many sympathetic people to make a profit. I looked at the scene of my mother-in-law half crying and half laughing, live streaming and selling, feeling extremely ridiculous. There really was. Money is easy to do anything. After earning a bunch of money from online begging, they did not use it to pay off their debts, but to ask for favors and grease the wheels to get the trial started sooner. I knew about it, but did not bother to stop it. Actually, if it dragged on like this, I was already annoyed. It would be best to get it over with. On the day the trial opened, Qi Qiu, who was already pregnant, walked in front with his arm around Henan, who was already pregnant, and his mother-in-law beside him. The three of them clung to each other tightly like a model family. In particular, there were many people who suddenly came to the court gate to support them. They were all looking forward to a trial where they thought a wicked woman like me would be punished appropriately. But I just smiled coldly and calmly walked into the court, holding in my hands all the documents, evidence, recordings, and papers. The party had finally begun. I was satisfied with the scene before me. The more people, the better. Before the trial began, Qi Qiu, who was fake, stopped me in the restroom. Only after a short time of not seeing each other, he had been tormented by life to the point of becoming much older and more frail. He gritted his teeth and grabbed my wrist tightly. I'll give you one last chance. If you regret it now, I can still forgive you otherwise. Before he could finish his sentence, I swung my hand and slapped him straight in the face. Looking at his surprised eyes, I rubbed my slightly numb hand, feeling extremely happy inside. I've wanted to do that for a long time. It's just that today I have the chance. My eldest brother dragged out those 2 words, emphasizing each word. The corners of his lips curled up sarcastically. After all, I'm his sister-in-law. You're grabbing me like this. It's so unsightly. Chi Jiaojia's face immediately turned as black as coal. I didn't want to waste any more energy, turned around and left, leaving behind his cold words. Xu Shuwei, even if you regret it later, it's too late. The trial began. Chi Zhao's face was cold. He lowered his head and whispered to the lawyer. Xia Nan, sitting beside me, his eyes filled with pride, glancing at me provocatively. Xu Shuwei, do you really have to drag things to this point? After all, according to the law, we will be divided in half of Qi Yu's assets. I nodded, smiling happily. That's right, let's take it slow. I calmly took out a document and handed it straight to the judge. The moment he saw the title of the document, Qi Zhao suddenly jumped up, his face pale, unable to keep calm. He had forgotten an orphan like me who had lost his parents since childhood, always lived in fear of being taken over. And at that time he was at the end of his rope and signed a prenuptial agreement to marry me. It's just that after many years, he thought he had everything, forgetting what he had signed. Not only the prenuptial agreement, I also submitted all the financial statements under my name over the years. Thank you, Qi Zhao's family, for taking it upon themselves to make a big deal out of things. The court today's trial was broadcast live. Millions of people were watching. Every piece of evidence presented had thousands of witnesses. Tridu married me with nothing in hand, relying on my dowry to get to where he is today. Not only that, I also have full evidence of the jewelry he stole from me, gave to Hanam, and then sold by her. All were collected legally with clear death certificates without any loopholes. In the blink of an eye, the tide of public opinion immediately reversed. The comments in the live stream exploded, full of curses, anger and disgust pouring towards Trichu and his family. Hanam stared at me, her expression as if she had just discovered a stranger. I was just calm, even leisurely. I had prepared thoroughly for today. I was even afraid that I was not strong enough to completely defeat him, but in the end, I did it. The judge's hammer sounded, closing the case. Trichu was still alive, the one who had sat cross-legged in my villa, who had laughed mockingly when I cried over the loss of my husband, who had pretended to be dead to steal everything. Now penniless Qi Yu is gone, bearing the name of Phoenix South, who depends on his wife, who cheats on his marriage, who lives off women's money. The name Qi Yu has been nailed to the pillar of shame. Actually, I didn't understand how many years we lived together. Even if we raised a dog, it wouldn't be that cruel. Until I heard the conversation between him and his mother before he died, I understood. He always thought that I looked down on him. He felt that using my money in my house was a disgrace. Then in this life, I will make him carry that shame for the rest of his life. Qi Zhao now has nothing in his hands except for a pregnant wife, Ha Nam. As for my legal farmer, Qi Yu, I had his household registration erased by me from the very first days. The law recognizes him as dead. As for the guy who is still alive right in front of me, he is an imposter and a fraud. But wait, I have another surprise gift for him. I sent the video recording of the 3 Qi family members on the day of the earthquake to the media accounts and even paid for them to repost it. I believe that soon the entire social network will be in an uproar together, witnessing how Qi Zhao's family came to oppress my mother and I in the moment of life and death. The Qi family collapsed. Qi Zhao could no longer continue to live stream crying to earn money, but the creditors still knocked on the door every day to demand his life. And as I expected, Qi Zhao began to regret it. One day he came to me, his face looking like he was about to cry. "Shuwei, you're not dead, it's you, you're Qi Yu." Between us was the tightly closed gate of the villa. I raised my eyebrows, my eyes cold. Through the iron bars looking at his haggard face, I only felt disgust. Seeing that I was completely unmoved, Qi Zhao's eyes showed clear panic. "Shuwei is you, you're Qi Yu, the person I've loved for all these years." I laughed coldly, the corners of my lips curled up sarcastically, not hiding the contempt in my eyes. "Are you crazy?" Qi Zhao's face immediately turned pale, clearly not expecting me to react like that. In his imagination, I loved him madly, so once I knew he was still alive, I would definitely happily rush to hug him, forgiving everything. A glimmer of hope flashed in his mind. Chi Zhao looked at me with longing, his voice hoarse and trembling. Can we start over? You knew it a long time ago, right? You know I'm not your brother. I didn't reply, just smiled at him, my eyes calm as if I was watching someone act. Shu Wei, do you blame me? But I had no choice but to let my mother force me. My sister-in-law was pregnant at that time. My mother was afraid that if she knew the truth, she wouldn't be able to bear the shock, so she forced me to pretend to be your brother. I had planned to wait until she gave birth and then come back to find you to explain. But we kept having misunderstandings. It was all an accident. Looking at Chi Zhao's righteous expression, I just felt funny. For the first time, I truly realized how shameless a person could be. If I hadn't seen and heard the words he said with my own eyes and ears in my previous life, I might have been fooled by him again. I curled my lips, my voice as light as air. Big brother, it seems like your brain really has a problem. Don't worry if you really have a mental illness. I will definitely take you to the hospital for treatment and try to help you stabilize. I couldn't hide the cold threat in my eyes. Chi Zhao immediately used his body to make every hair on the back of his neck stand up, his eyes filled with panic. Because he knew that I could do what I said. If I wanted to, I could really send him for a psychiatric evaluation, put him in a mental institution, and make him unable to go out again. You're trying to get revenge on me, right? Chi Zhao stuttered, his voice starting to tremble. He saw the faint smile on my lips as if he was seeing a stranger, and instinctively took a step back. In his eyes at this moment, I was no longer the woman who loved him. This is the result he sowed, and now he must bear. A look of despair flashed in Chi Zhao's eyes. At that moment, my daughter ran out of the house, but as soon as she saw Chi Zhao, she immediately stopped. Her little feet seemed to be nailed to the spot. Chi Zhao looked at her, her eyes that had already dimmed, suddenly lit up as if she had caught the last hope. Xiao Tran, it's me, Dad, you daughter, it's me. He reached out his hand intending to step closer, but the girl took a step back, her cold eyes completely different from her young age. Her immature voice rang out, but carried a heartbreaking decisiveness. Your father is dead. Chi Zhao stood there as if struck by lightning. He didn't understand that from the moment he embarrassed his mother and Xia Nan to bully my mother and me, he had already died in her heart. And this time, he was dead forever. Chi Zhao completely collapsed, screaming in panic. I am Chi Yu. I am not Chi Zhao. I will call the police. I want to get my real identity back. My mother can testify. I didn't let him make many phone calls. I took the initiative to call the police for him. Chi Zhao's eyes were red. He was panting, screaming like crazy. Shu Wei, you are a cruel woman. I want to divorce you. I raised my eyebrows calmly, looking at the police comrades who had just arrived. You guys came at the right time. This person is my husband's twin brother. Because of the debt, he wanted to impersonate my husband to escape the debt. I suspect he is mentally unstable. As I spoke, I pulled out Chi Yu's death certificate. The huge debt confirmation paper was in Chi Zhao's name and all the evidence to compare his identity. As for Chi Zhao, there was nothing to prove it other than his mouth and his biological mother. The truth was as clear as day. A policeman looked at Chi Zhao seriously. Impersonating someone else's identity was a violation of the law. No matter what, he had to obey the law. Chi Zhao almost fainted on the spot, but before he could recover, a group of creditors came and stood right outside the gate and knocked loudly. Chi Zhao's face had long since become rotten, no different from a rat running across the street. Anyone who saw it wanted to beat him. With no way back, he could only go do hard manual labor, but the wages he earned from working for hire were not worth much, not enough to support his sick old mother and Xia Nan, who was pregnant. Xia Nan nagged all day long, demanded to eat bird's nest, demanded to cook abalone, living as if he were. She was still the queen, but Chi Zhao couldn't even take care of a normal meal. He knew that all the suffering today was because of Xia Nan. He no longer had any feelings for the person he once loved. If it weren't for the son in her belly, the grandson that his mother had always longed for, Chi Zhao would have wanted to give up long ago. Unfortunately, Xia Nan asked for money again. She cried and scolded again. The two of them were on the narrow stairs of the boarding house. In the chaos, Chi Zhao accidentally pushed Xia Nan down the stairs. Xianan was 8 months pregnant, and the baby couldn't be kept, and the fall left her paralyzed on one side, unable to walk anymore. That was the grandson that his mother-in-law had always been waiting for. Hearing the news, she immediately had a heart attack, fainted on the spot, and when she woke up, she was bedridden, unable to take care of herself. Chi Zhao was arrested by the police and his mother eventually died in the cold boarding house. No one by her side. When people discovered her, her body was rotting in the middle of a swarm of bugs. When Chi Chu heard the news of her suicide in prison many years later, I stood on the balcony, the sunlight shining on my daughter's face as bright as the sun. I smiled unconsciously, only one thing remained in my heart, thanking God. Thank you for giving me a chance to start over, and for letting those who deserved to pay for everything they had done. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to click like and subscribe to support my efforts and listen to more good stories from Ken Stories. Goodbye everyone, and see you in the next videos.